Good evening, everyone. It is truly a pleasure to welcome you to this investment forum and ECCB and its partnering financial institutions initiative for Financial Information Month 2025. Let me tell you a little bit about FIM. Financial Information Month, or FIM, is a regional financial, economic, business, and entrepreneurial education campaign executed in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union since 2002 through the collaborative efforts of the ECCB member governments, financial and academic institutions, the media, other private and public sector institutions, and community-based groups. The month forms part of an ECCU financial and economic education program coordinated by the ECCB. The program incorporates a series of initiatives designed to support the attainment of the goal of a financially developed and vibrant ECCU region that fosters strong and sustainable economic growth and the improved well-being of the citizenry. The overarching FIM theme is financial empowerment through education. This year, we continued with last year's theme, financial investing from savers to investors, with specific emphasis on wealth creation. This theme reminds us that while saving is a critical first step toward financial stability, it is only the beginning of the journey. True financial empowerment comes when we take that next step, when we move from simply storing our money to strategically growing it, when we stop letting our money rest and instead put it to work. Today's forum is designed to help us better understand that transition from saving to investing, from short-term security to long-term growth, and from individual caution to collective confidence in building wealth. But before we go any further, let us pause to acknowledge the importance of wisdom and guidance in all we do. At this time, I invite Mrs. Lydia Bob Frame to lead us in the opening prayer.
Good evening, all. May we all stand as we pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening with hearts filled with gratitude. We thank you for the gift of life, for sound minds, and for bringing us here safely together for this important occasion. We commit the proceedings of this evening into your divine hands. We ask your blessing upon our chair as she leads, that all will be done with wisdom, clarity, and under your guidance. We lift up each presenter before you. Grant them confidence, insight, and clarity of thought, that their contributions may enlighten, inspire, and empower all in attendance. We are thankful for the success of Financial Information Month thus far, and we pray for your continued favor upon all our partners and participants. As this session unfolds, may each person leave with renewed purpose and say, "It was good to be here." May your presence dwell among us throughout this evening and beyond. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. You may be seated.
Thank you, Mrs. Frame, for that uplifting prayer. We now move right into our presentations. We are privileged to have with us a distinguished group of presenters who will share practical insights and local investment opportunities available to all of us. Their perspectives will guide us as we explore how we can use the tools and resources within our reach to create wealth, achieve financial independence, and contribute to the wider development of our economy. Our first presenter is Mr. Mervyn Lord, CEO of Ariza Credit Union. Mr. Lord serves as the Chief Executive Officer of Ariza, having joined the organization on December 1st, 2022. With a remarkable career that spans both the private and public sectors, Mr. Lord brings a wealth of experience to his role. Prior to Ariza, he was the general manager of the Grenada Development Bank from 2008, where his leadership consistently propelled the bank to exceed key strategic and operational targets. A passionate advocate for business development, leadership, and wealth creation, Mr. Lord has held significant positions on various boards, including chairman of the Budgegrove Cooperative Credit Union, treasurer of the Grenada Cooperative League, and director of the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Notably, he was the chairman of the Association of Development Banks of the Eastern Caribbean from 2016 to 2022. Mr. Lord's expertise encompasses leadership, business management, accounting, finance, and strategic management. He earned a master's degree in accounting and finance from Birmingham University in the UK and a bachelor's degree in business administration with a major in management from Andrews University in the USA. His commitment to high-level leadership training underscores his dedication to excellence. Believing firmly in the principles of exceptional leadership, Mr. Lord emphasizes the importance of teamwork and employee satisfaction as fundamental pillars for institutional transformation and financial sustainability. His vision for Ariza is rooted in fostering an inclusive environment that prioritizes people and collaborative success. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome to the podium Mr. Mervyn Lord.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Are we awake or are we sleeping? We are awake. Good, because I want to make sure that we are awake right through for all the presentation. But I will start with a question. And this is a question every time I do wealth creation presentation, I love to ask this question. If all the money in the world was divided equally among everybody in the world, what will happen in a few years' time? You can answer? Huh? We can't afford to live. Why? Inflation? The same amount of money will get back to the people who have a lot of money today. And my presentation
definition of Robert Kiyosaki. An American investor definition of Robert Kiyosaki. An American investor, businessman, author, motivational speaker, and financial commentator who became well known in the recent years, who has an estimated net worth of $80 million. Want to know something interesting? Oh? He wasn't raised in a wealthy background. In fact, his family was like most people who worked but didn't have the best financial education and oftentimes struggled with money. So then, how did Robert become rich today? Let's take a look as he explains in one of his bestsellers called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki was born in Hilo, Hawaii in April 1947. In 1957, at age 9 years old, little Robert was attending the same public school where the rich people sent their children, for his town had lots of doctors, business owners, and bankers. Robert saw that the rich kids would separate themselves from him, for his family wasn't able to afford the newest collections of toys and bikes like them. So, one day, Robert asked his father, who had a PhD and completed multiple universities with excellent degrees, "Dad, can you tell me how to get rich?" Unfortunately, his dad didn't know the right answer because he wasn't rich himself, so he responded with, "Well, use your head, son. Stay in school, get good grades, so you could find a safe and secure job." His real dad is what he'll be referred to as Poor Dad. He wasn't poor during this time. In fact, he was making lots of money. But in the end, this man's financial life takes a turn for the worse. Now, little Robert has a friend named Mike, in which Mike's father would be referred as Rich Dad, who started mentoring Robert and his son Mike about how to really become rich. At this point in time, Rich Dad wasn't really rich yet, but soon became to be one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii. So then, what did Rich Dad teach Robert? Rich Dad poured a strong financial foundation into these kids' minds of many important principles. To start off, the first lesson you need to know is you must know the difference between an asset and a liability, and that you need to buy assets. If you want to be rich, this is all you really need to know and understand the most. You see, the rich acquire assets, and the poor and middle class acquire liabilities, but sometimes they think they are assets. The primary cause of financial struggle is simply not knowing the difference between an asset and a liability. Oh, right. You don't even know what an asset and a liability is, don't you? An asset is something that puts money in my pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of my pocket. For instance, let's draw a cash flow pattern of a normal individual. This person right here earns his income from a job, and his expenses are things like food, clothes, entertainment, and transportation. Unfortunately, he doesn't have assets, but sure does have liabilities that constantly takes money out of his pocket, because things like mortgages, taxes, credit cards, loans, and, believe it or not, the house. Now let's take a look how the cash flow pattern really works for the rich. Instead of looking to earn more money from their normal job as the only source of income, they buy and own assets that brings money into their pockets as a form of passive income. Passive income is something that earns money that doesn't require you to trade your time for it. So in other words, you would be earning money even as you're sleeping. Examples of assets are businesses that doesn't require your presence, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, income generating real estate, royalties, notes, and anything else that has value that produces income. As mentioned before, Poor Dad was making quite a lot of money from his job, but his expenses seemed to always keep up with his income, never allowing him to invest in assets. As a result, his liabilities such as his mortgages and credit card debts grew greater over time. And this is the fault of having income equals expense, and assets is less than liabilities. And sadly, this is what drove Poor Dad into debt, even after he passed away.
Stop it. What are some takeaways? Any significant takeaway? Anything that jumped out? Passive income. Anything else? Assets over liability. You understand what is an asset? Good. We're going to talk more about that. Because that is the most important thing to become wealthy. Understanding the difference between what is termed assets in wealth and what is termed liability and acquiring assets. Is there a difference between rich and wealth? If you're rich, you're wealthy? Could anyone tell me what is the difference if there is a difference? Huh? Longevity? Anybody else? Huh? Anybody think that is the same thing? If you're rich, you're wealthy, it's not the same thing? Not the same thing? Okay. No. It is not the same thing. If you're rich, you merely have cash. You could have a lot of it. You could have millions of it. But you can utilize all of it. If you're wealthy, you have the things that generate cash. And even if you use the cash, it will continue generating cash. And that is the marked difference between rich and wealthy. I like the term to differentiate between wealth and rich. I like to use the concept of sand. So let us say sand is cash. If you're rich, you will take a number of truck piles of sand and you're going to pile it up. But you're a builder, you're going to be using the sand. So eventually, you utilize all the sand. But if you're wealthy, you'll make sure that you bought some beaches. So when you utilize all the sand, eventually the beach will create more sand. And that is the marked difference. Now, wealth. If you want to become wealthy, I think we can start with a definition. What is the definition of wealth? How will you know if you're wealthy? And some persons have it as an abundance of valuable possessions. Others have it as accumulation of scarce resources. But this is what I like. This definition. The freedom from work. That is when you know if you're wealthy. If you stop work and you still can survive with an exceptional standard of living, then you know that you're wealthy. If you can't, you may have a lot of cash so that you may be rich, but the cash will finish. But if you're wealthy, the things that you own will continue generating cash. That is it. Excellent point. Right? So the cash, sometimes the inflation is growing faster than the interest rate, which will mean that your cash is reducing even if you did not use it. So the thing is, how could we become wealthy? And I think we all want to know, how can we become wealthy? To become wealthy, because our culture is good for a lot of things. But the sad thing about our culture, so all cultures have good and bad. Yeah? So our culture has, so much of good things, the food, the carnival, the colors, so much of good things. But our culture does not have a culture of wealth. So, if we have to become wealthy, we must first change our culture and our mindset. And the first thing we have to do is to delay gratification. And that is simple as saying, you want it, You can't afford it, don't get it. Simple language. So you want a brand new car, you cannot afford a brand new car, then don't get a brand new car. You delay your gratification until you can afford it. And even better, you delay it until something else is paying for it for you and not your work. Oh boy. So we're talking about mindset and culture change. The other thing is live within your means and extend your means. So if you are working for $2,000, live for $1,800. But don't keep it at that. You now have to get involved in something. Do something that you can increase. Not stealing from your employer, but do something that will not affect the time you spend on your work, and your income might increase now from $2,000 to $5,000. But hear what? Ain't you all living for $1,008? Live for $1,008 for a while. Put the monies away because you need it for investment. The mistake we make is that every time we extend our means, we extend our living. And then we do not have access to save and to invest. But the most important thing about becoming wealthy is understanding the difference between an asset and a liability. And I want to make it clear for those who did accounts that an asset based on accounts is a resource. So the chairs, the table, your house, all of that, these are assets in accounts. We are not talking about assets in accounts. We are talking about assets in wealth. And an asset in wealth is anything that puts money into your pocket. So it put more money into your pocket than it's taken out. And I was listening to something on social media, and a guy said it perfectly. He said an asset is anything that pays you to own it. Think about it. Something that you own, that just because you own it, it is paying you. That is an asset. So a house could be an asset if it's a real estate investment and it is giving you more than your mortgage and all the expense. But it can be a liability if you are paying for it. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not saying don't get a house. I am saying get something else to pay for it. Think about it. Now that you know that to become wealthy, you have to acquire assets. And remember, assets are anything that put more money into your pocket than it takes out. So whether it is real estate investment, whether it is investment in treasury bills and bonds, whether it is investment in shares, all of these are assets. But to get wealthy, now that you know that you have to acquire assets, you must plan. Nothing happens just by chance. So you must plan. And you have to plan big. Do not be scared of how $1 million song if it can make 2 or 3 million, 4 million over a short period of time. So do not just look at what is the loan, look at what is the return and whether or not the return can meet all the commitment and still put significant monies into your pocket. So you have to plan big. Then to become wealthy, you must have financial literacy. And that is why all the money will go back to the people who have financial literacy, who have assets. Because guess what? If we took all the money and we distribute it, where will we take the money? And we have to go and shop? Who own these assets? And we go Amazon and Shein? Who owns these assets? So all the money will go back to the people who own the assets that will generate the money. So if we do not have any assets, we will just be spending. And that is why we will not get wealthy unless we acquire assets. So one of the fundamental concepts in financial literacy is pay yourself first. And you will hear that all the time. Pay yourself first. So every month, and I have a ratio, a 75, 15, 10. Take it down. 75, 15, 10. 75% of your income is for your needs and your wants. But before you get to that, 15% is for long-term investment, and you may have to save to invest, and 10% is for short-term saving to meet short-term needs. Let us say you have annual insurance. So every month you pay, you save for that insurance. So when the government pitch a bond for 50 that you can invest up to 50,000 at 4.25%, you have cash to invest. If you did not save, you will just have to watch that investment pass by. I want to tell you, if you save, let us say you're 25 years, and you save only $300,000 from your age 25, and let us say you retire at 65, and let us say you put that into a riser retirement saving plan every month. When you reach 65, you have $379,000. Just $300 per month. Think about it. Think about it. Far more. If you took that monies and invest it, you could have over $1 million. Because you could use that money and acquire assets. You have to look at ways and means to continuously reduce your expenditure. One way is to try to cook. 1/3 of the cost in a restaurant is to actually cook. Yeah? So instead of buying food every day, if you cook, you can reduce expenses. Now, we all want luxurious things. And I want each and every one of you to want luxurious things, because that will be the motivation for wealth. If you don't want anything luxurious, you wouldn't want to be wealthy. But if you want luxurious things, or you want to leave something for your children, generational wealth, then you will focus on wealth. But hear what? You must first generate cash flow from your asset to acquire your wealth, to acquire your luxury, to get your luxury. So let us say, for example, you want to live in a big house. You should start be thinking, what could pay for that? What could I invest in that can pay for that house? I want to travel every year. What could pay for that? What can I invest in to pay for that? So I am not saying do not enjoy your life and live in luxury. But first you acquire something or some things that will pay for it so that your hard-earned money is not paying for all your luxury. And you know what? When we get the excess cash, because let us say we have one asset and we realize we have excess cash, we are tempted to just spend it. But guess what? If one asset is giving us another $10,000, two assets might give us 20. So the excess cash you invest in new assets. This is what the wealthy people do. The excess cash, so they start with one asset. The excess cash, they move to another asset and they leverage financial institutions through loans. Yeah? So they're not using only the cash, they're sharing the risk, some of their cash, some of the financial institution cash, they invest, they get assets, and they continue to acquire additional assets. And then they get wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. We have to gain financial aptitude. And one of the things with this is that, and you need to try it. How can you keep other persons from taking the money that you have? So let us say you walk down the street with $300. Everybody needs or wants that $300. You pass by the supermarket, all the things on the shelf is begging you to buy it. Yeah? You scroll on Amazon. Everything is just begging you to spend that money. But how could you lock that money away and don't spend it unless there's a need? That is the kind of financial aptitude that you need in order to become wealthy. But guess what? The Bible is a very important book. And the Bible will never lie. As you get wealthy, you must give back and help others. Do not be selfish. Do not be greedy. And let me give you some example of some wealthy people and the kind of giving back. I know all of us heard about Warren Buffett. And in 2022, his net worth was $115 billion. You know how much he gave back? $46.1 billion. Think about it. He just gave that away. $46.1 billion. George Soros, his net worth was 8.6. And he's a giver. He gave back 18.1. He gave back more than his net worth. But they are still billionaires. So do not think that to get wealthy, you do not have to help persons along the way. You have to continue helping people. And for some miracle, by helping people, the Almighty will also help you. Now, wealth is about skills. A lot of times the wealthy people will tell you, well, I never went to college. And sometimes when our children hear that, they will come and say, Mommy, Daddy, this person's a millionaire, they never went to college. Why am I going to college? Why are you forcing me to go to college? But guess what? These people have so much skills. They read so much books. They know it like they know it all. They are brighter than us that went to university. So, whether you go to university or you don't go to university, you have to acquire skills. You have to know a little about everything or about a lot of things, whether it is marketing, whether it is negotiation, leadership, the market, investment. And if you don't know, you have to read, take short courses, find somebody who can teach you. Because if you don't have those skills, most likely you will not be wealthy. Because wealth creation requires skills. And when you go to work, if you really focusing on being wealthy, you have to understand that you're going to work not to earn. You're going to work to learn. Learning skills. Learning techniques. Not to compete, because that conflict of interest with your workplace. But the skill set can allow you to invest and create your own passive income while not interfering with your time in the organization. But remember, you have to give the organization your all. So do not go and say, well, I just learned that when I go to work, I don't go to work to earn. I just go to work to learn. So I'm learning, I'm not doing anything. Because karma is something. Yes? Remember also, you become what you study. So you have to choose your study material wisely. Some of us only listen to influencers. And some influencers don't even know what they're saying. But we take it as the Bible. So look at the source when you're studying. But to become wealthy, you must take risk. So anytime, if you're scared of risk, you will never become wealthy. I will repeat. If you're scared of risk and if you do not take risk, you will not become wealthy. And guess what? Every single wealthy person lost money. Some lost a lot. Some lost a small amount. Some lost all and then rebuild. But you know, there are a lot of poor people who never lost money. So you have to choose. Do you want to remain poor and never lose money? Or do you want to take calculated? So I'm not telling you, look at a precipice and jump over it. Yeah? No. You have to analyze and make sure that that investment could yield fruits. And guess what? Failure inspires winners. Failure inspires winners. So if you want to be a winner, you're not scared to fail. Now you know what not to do. And that's the best way of knowing what not to do, other than learning it from maybe somebody else who made a mistake. So don't be scared to fail, but learn. I'm not telling you go deliberately to fail. No, we are going out there to succeed. But sometimes we fail, we just have to learn from it. Now your emotions is something that can set you astray. Fear, anxiety. So you don't want to invest. And guess what? Your friends, our friends, especially if they never invest, they will always give you all the reason not to go into it. But have they ever went into anything like that? No. So please talk to people who did it, who understand it. And guess what? They are willing to teach you and assist you. The video talk about passive income. Now this is what you have to focus. If you really want to be wealthy, this is what you have to focus on. You may not be able to get to passive income initially. You may have to be working on whatsoever that business or in that business. but your focus is on passive income. Money is generating money while you are in Miami on the beach. So if you invest in government bonds while you're up in Miami, that 4.25 is generating. If you have real estate and you have people renting from you, while you're in Dubai, you are making money. That is what is called passive income. If you have to actually be doing the hard work yourself, that is not passive income. But you may have to start doing the hard work yourself, but eventually to invest in passive income. Now, for most people, their job is the only or main source of income. But when you become wealthy, your assets, whether it is your shares, the bonds, the real estate, the royalties, your business, this is what will be your major income. Now, once you get wealthy, to remain wealthy, you have to protect it. Because we're not talking about building wealth, and you build the wealth, and let us say you invest in real estate, one hurricane come, you back down to zero. So, in terms of protecting your wealth, we always like to have business, just a business name. No. Form corporations or limited liability cooperatives. How does that protect? It protects your personal belongings because the business and you separate. Okay? So that is why President Trump could be bankrupt and still a billionaire, because he has different business set up as different companies. So one company can go down without affecting negatively the other company. And that is what you need to do as you become wealthy. I know a gentleman, he has about 5 houses in the States, and each one of the house is in a different company name. What will that do for him? If one should go down, it will not affect the other 4. Insurance. Insurance. And I'm not here marketing insurance company, but I'm telling you, it is important. I went to Carriacou the day after the hurricane, and I met with a lady, and she said, for all my working life, I insured my house. I just retire, finish pay the institution, and I stop pay insurance. And the hurricane just mashed it up. Insurance is not for the bank, it's not for the credit union, it's not for the financial institution. Insurance is for you. It is your asset eventually, and you are protecting. So anything that is insurable, you need to insure it. And when you're talking about wealth, you need to diversify. Our grandparents will say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So what that means is that if you are investing, don't only invest in one sector, try to invest maybe in another sector. And you also have to look at sectors that link. So for example, agriculture and tourism link. So if tourism is affected, sometimes it could affect agriculture. So in your investment, once you have the liquidity, diversify your investment. So if you are investing, let us say you're investing in bonds and you have the liquidity, you might invest in bonds in Grenada. You might say, okay, well, let me go up the island and invest in bonds in another country, another island as well. So if anything happened to one island, I still have my investment in another island that is doing well. What is on this slide? Listen. Investment, wealth creation, we must have fun. We have to remember that we only live once. What we can do at 25, we cannot do it at 65. So guess what? Throughout the stage of life, even though we are focusing on acquiring assets, we have to enjoy ourselves. That journey has to be a journey of enjoyment. And I'm not saying that you spend all your money enjoying yourself, because you can go on a hike, you can go on the beach. When you have limited resources, you do not have to go to the United States or Dubai. But as you acquire more and more resources, you might be able to go to the United States once every 5 years. Eventually, you might be able to travel every year. But if you like to travel, you have to plan, you have to prepare, you have to save for it, and you have to make it happen. But you must enjoy yourself. So do not come here, listen to this presentation, and then just start to save, and do not enjoy. In fact, when you budgeting, you should budget for entertainment. It might be low initially if your income is relatively low, but please budget for entertainment. So hear what? Many of us, we budget, do not put any allocation for entertainment, and then entertainment take out all the money. And what we thought we budgeted, we can't meet it. We have to take out for entertainment. So, before I conclude, any points? Any fundamental points? Any major takeaway? I'll just take two in the essence of time. Diversification of investment to mitigate risk, to reduce your risk. Any other thing? One more? Have fun with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lord. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Lord? No? Very concise, very clear, and I know a lot hit home. All right.
Carrie Pierre is the head of the debt management unit.
So we move on to our next presentation. Our next presenter oversees the government's debt management strategy and brings valuable insights into how individuals can participate in national development, more specifically, government's recently launched retail bond. Mr. Kerry Pear is the head of the debt management unit at the Ministry of Finance, Grenada. He began his career in 2005 after earning a degree from Cuba. From 2005 to 2018, he served in the budget unit, advancing from budget officer to chief budget officer. Since 2018, he has led Grenada's debt management unit. Since 2018, he has led Grenada's debt management strategy, focusing on sustainability and market development. Kerry holds a master's in development policy from the Korean Development Institute and has completed extensive training in macroeconomic planning, forecasting, debt management, and debt sustainability, medium-term budgeting, medium-term debt strategy, just to name a few. His work reflects a strong commitment to sound public financial management and inclusive economic development. Ladies and gentlemen, our next presenter, Mr. Kerry Pear.
Thank you, thank you. Good night, everyone. While we getting the laptop set up, um, let me just extend Mr. Lord's presentation a little bit. He spoke about the culture and that we don't have a culture of wealth creation per se on the island. And culture is one of the hardest things to change. Anywhere you go, you hear that culture is one of the hardest things to change because it's just our habit. It's what we know, what we learn, what we practice from since we know ourselves, right? So to change a habit, you know you need to practice something different. Yeah, means you have to do differently. And he spoke about delaying our gratification as one of the key factors of wealth creation. Yeah? And delaying that gratification means changing your culture, your behavior, so how you deal with your spending and how you use your money. And one of the hardest things to do is to delay that gratification because we all face something that is called present bias. Anybody knows what present bias is? All right. Present bias simply means that the person who is standing here today will always favor the decision to satisfy what he wants or needs or feels today than future you. So when you're saving, you're not saving for you today, you're saving for future you. When you're investing for future you. But the person that's standing in front here today would always try to choose to satisfy who is here today because future me is not here today, it's me today. You know? So there is that cultural change that we have to make, especially through what we do, what we practice. That small change we make today to put aside the 25%, 15 for long term, 5 for short, and 75 to meet your needs as Mr. Lord would have indicated. And I would go even further to say, save before you spend. And not spend and save what's left. Put aside the saving first, and you could determine whether you could spend all that left for you to spend less and save some more. But save before you spend. Spend after. Oh, sure. Please do. Exactly. And put it where it's not always easy to reach. Yeah? So if you know you have multiple accounts and one account is the saving account for later on down the road, you're trying to build the capital you need for that initial investment, make it a little difficult to access. If you take the debit card though, I would say don't even take the debit card. Yeah? Or if they give you the envelope, leave it in the envelope, seal, don't even activate it with the code. Make it a little difficult to access. You're going out and fit and you know your budget, your fund budget is $200. Leave the debit card home and go with the fund budget that you have so that you can't go past or beyond that. Yeah? You have to do all that you need or all that you think you can to safeguard not just the wealth that you create, but as you go along creating the wealth, you have to start to protect it from there. Yeah? Mr. Lord, I'll end there and go on to my presentation. So I'm here today to speak to you about what we call the retail bond, right? Our government, as well as I think St. Kitts is also trying to do an issuance in very short order, if not on the same day, as the government of Grenada. We're doing what is called a household bond, right? And I believe in saving that presentation. It might have gotten a little bit mixed up. All right. So what is a bond? A bond is a bond or a treasury bill or a treasury note, as you might hear, is actually a promise to pay. It's an IOU. So I come to you as a government and I say I need to raise some money and I'm coming to the citizens or institutions, both regional and local, and I'm saying I need to borrow some money. I'm going to pay you X amount of interest. I'm going to pay you back in X amount of time. And I borrow from you. And in some cases, in the past, you would actually get a physical document that you hold in your hand called a bond certificate to say that you've lent this money to government. And when the time period or the maturity period is up, you bring in your certificate and you get back your money. Sometimes you would get paid your interest before, sometimes you get paid your interest when you hand in your certificate. Right now, we're operating in an environment where we do so much things digitally, so we are no longer giving out digital certificates. Yeah, we're no longer giving out hard certificates. When you purchase a bond, especially through the brokers create what is called a brokerage account for you, and your information is there. So you don't have to hand me a certificate when your bond matures. You would be paid through the financial or the fiscal administrator, as we say, when your bond becomes due. What differs a bond from a treasury bill and so? The only thing that makes them different is the time period. If we do a short-term IOU, a short-term instrument, it's called a treasury bill. Anything less than 365 days. So if I borrow for less than 365 days, it's called a treasury bill. When we do what is called medium term, it's called a treasury note. If we do long term, it's called a bond. Yeah? So anything above 365, it's either a note or a bond. Anything below 365, it's called a treasury bill. And we issue them for different purposes. When we issue a treasury bill, we usually do that for what is called cash flow management. What is cash flow management? Cash flow management is simply that you're planning what you're going to do with your money or what you need to do. You realize that, hey, I might need to do some serious spending in January, but based on my cash, based on what is coming in, based on what my assets are running, I won't have enough money in January to do it. So we borrow to do what we need to do in January, and we pay it back later on down the road. And that's what treasury bills are used for. Cash flow management. Government knows that it has, for example, large payments to make at the end of the year in December. We normally would pay 2 salaries. You might have an extra debushing. You have so many other things going. Government knows that on the normal, December is a month where we have a lot of outflow of cash. Based on what you collect in taxes and fees and penalties and these sort of things, it may quite be that we won't have enough cash in December. So we do a treasury bill so that we collect the cash up front, we can pay in December, and later on down the road, 91 days typically afterwards, you get repaid. Yeah? So you use treasury bill for cash flow management. You use bonds and notes for maybe project financing. You have a project that you want to do, you want to raise some monies to execute this project, so you do a bond. Typical example of that in the history of Grenada is the airport bonds. Based on the faces I'm seeing here, many of you, if not all of you, may not necessarily be familiar with the airport bonds. These were issued for the construction of the airport. Yeah? So that was many years ago. I believe the bond actually matured in 2000. But we still have people who are bringing in their certificates. They're finding certificates, the bond certificates, and they have value. And so they bring them in to cash them in. Up to last month, I would have redeemed bonds from the airport, which would have matured in 2000. So you have different uses for your bonds. And as in this particular case, with this household bond that we're issuing, its main aim is not to raise financing for government per se. It is to provide a safe investment opportunity for citizens, not just for Grenada. We're talking about the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Yeah, so that's the purpose of the treasury bills and bonds. Yeah. Please ask. This that is one of the objectives of this particular issuance. Now, typically, governments would issue bonds and bills because you're looking to raise money. Yeah. So we borrow to whatever it is government wants to do at that point in time. However, retail bonds of these kinds are not necessarily focused so much on raising financing. This particular issuance is a pilot. It's the very first of its kind. Well, anything that government chooses to use it for is not tied to anything in particular. Yeah? When you have a bond tied to a project, yes, it is tied to a project. Otherwise, it's basically to cover government operations. Yeah? They can. Yeah? But you wouldn't typically issue a short-term instrument for a project as large as the hospital. When you're doing large projects like that, you tend to do what is called a long-term instrument because you want to be able to finance the project. You want it to be able to start generating returns so that it in turn can pay for itself. Yeah. So you want that space, that time period for that to happen. And I'll just stick a pin right here and jump right back to my good friend. Wealth creation takes time. Yeah. So you need time in. Lucia Ander Livingston, she's saying that you need time in. When you put your money into an asset to generate wealth, to generate income, you need to give it time to do so. People can get rich overnight, but wealth creation doesn't take place overnight. Yeah? You could have invested in Bitcoin and wake up tomorrow and find out, yeah, I made some good money in Bitcoin. You got rich. That doesn't necessarily translate to being wealthy, as we would have heard from Mr. Lord. Yeah? So we say, why invest? Mr. Lord spoke about risk. When you invest through government bills and bonds, your risk is minimized. Yeah? You're talking about investing on a platform that is well regulated. We have oversight by the Regional Debt Coordinating Committee. You have oversight by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. The issuers on the regional government securities market are governments. They're not private institutions, they're not individual. These are the governments of the currency union. Yeah? And so you're doing it through a regulated platform and you're doing it through licensed, regulated brokers. These are not persons coming to you and telling you about Creative Alliance and these sort of things. We're talking about licensed, regulated brokers. We have 6 of them in the region. So the risk that somebody could run away with your money after you give it to them, the risk that you don't receive your returns when you participate in these type of auctions, there is always some level of risk, but it is greatly minimized because of the method that is being used here. Yeah? Please. So what I can tell you is this. In the over 20 years existence of the securities, of the government securities market, with all the changes of all the governments in all of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, it has never affected the payments of any of the bonds or treasury bills that are being traded on the RGSM. All right? The history of the operation of the RGSM speaks for itself. There is always some measure of risk. We are issuing bonds. We could be hit with a natural disaster of such proportions that we really and truly would not be able to honor at the time of maturity our bonds. However, I can say that we had instruments on the market during Ivan, we had during Beryl, we had during the financial crisis, we had during COVID, and we've never missed a payment. Yeah? Oh. That's the level of confidence, that's the history of the operation of the market. And so you as an investor doing your due diligence, you should be guided by that. Yeah?
So I'm just confirming. So with Hurricane Ivan, which basically affected almost the whole island, it would not have impacted the bonds that already existed before it hit in any way.
The government of Grenada chose after Ivan to not do any restructuring of any of the bonds on the RGSM, and they met every single payment that was due on the RGSM as it relates to the regional government securities market. Now remember, all of our governments, all of the ECCU governments trade on the market. They all issue bonds, they all issue treasury bills on the market. However, nobody's forcing anybody to buy. So one of the things that would motivate you to buy is your confidence in the operations of the market. And if our governments fail to meet their obligations, confidence drops. And if confidence drops, then we won't be able to go to the market to get the financing at the level of interest that we would like. So there is a reasons why, even though you may be in distress as a government, as an island, that you protect the operations of the market for the greater good of the market. And we've seen that happen, like I said, in over the 20 years that the market has been in operation. Every treasury bill and bond has been paid. Yeah? So back to the topic as to why to participate. Like I said, you have minimized risk. It is actually designed for individuals. We have seen that in the normal auctions, for example, we do about 6 to 7 auctions every year outside of this retail bond. I have auctions that are 91-day treasury bills. I have auctions that are 1 year. I have a 2 year. Yeah? And so we do these auctions every year. And what we've seen is that the great majority of persons, or the great majority of successful bids on the auctions, are the institutions. So you have the banks, you have the credit unions, you have the insurances, you have the social security mechanism, the NIS. These institutions are being successful on the market, whereas the individuals are not. So we have what is called crowding out. And I believe the governor would have, in a meeting yesterday, in a session we had yesterday, pointed out that over 90-something% of the successful bids on the market actually are institutions. And that's why I say, I gave earlier, one of the objectives of this is to make it available to individuals. We want individuals to be able to access the market and earn an income from the market. Yeah? And we have what is called a fixed interest rate, a fixed predictable return on this particular bond of 4.25%. So if you are successful in your bid, you are guaranteed that rate of return on your investment. And of course, the bonds and the bills and so that are being issued, this particular retail bond is by the government. It supports national and regional development. Your money is going to be put to work by your government for you, the people, for us, the people. So it's what better reason to invest than for our own well-being. So you're not only investing to get a return on your investment, but you're also going to reap the benefits of where that money is spent and what it is spent for. Whenever we're going into debt, if you go to the credit union, you go to the bank, they always want to know how you're doing. They want to know how much you're making, what is your salary, how long you've been employed. They're looking at your ability to repay. So when we go out to the market and we say we want to borrow through this particular retail bond that we're doing, the household bond, we need to also say to you how we're doing. And this is just a quick economic snapshot of how government is performing and the projections for the next 3 years. What we're saying right here is that our economy continues to grow. We have a projected growth of 4.2% for GDP for 2025. I can tell you that these numbers are actually currently being reviewed, and the projections are looking even better than what I'm seeing, what you're seeing right here. So we're saying that our economy is performing well. The projections is that it will continue to perform well, And so our ability to repay looks good. That's what this picture tell you here, regardless of the numbers that you see. Yeah? So this bond is for 5 million. It's for a 2-year period. The interest rate is 4.25%, and interest will be paid semi-annually, meaning that twice for the year, interest payments would be made on this particular bond. One of the difficulties that we saw as it relates to persons participating in auctions was what is called the minimum bid. Before, on the regular auctions, not before, on the regular auctions that we've had, the minimum bid was 5,000. And you could increase in increments of 1,000. There was no cap. Well, of course, the cap would always be the maximum amount that I'm going for, but no one person has ever offered to lend government $25 million on an auction. Yeah? So there's no cap in this particular instance. What we did to make this more accessible is, one, limit the issuance of this bond to only individuals. So only what we call natural individuals are able to invest in these bonds. We've taken out all of the institutions, the banks, everybody else who normally would have crowded out the individuals. Yeah? We've reduced the minimum from 5,000 to 500. So the minimum investment here is 500. However, we've had to put a cap of 50,000 because even with a minimum, if we don't put a cap, you may just find that a few persons would purchase all of the bonds. So in order to give more persons an opportunity, especially given that this is the very first, and this is the pilot, and we're trying and we're promoting financial intelligence and financial information and financial education, we want people to be able to participate, yeah? So we've placed a cap so that at least we can get more persons participating. I've had several calls where persons asking, why can't you remove the cap? We like what we're seeing and we want to invest more. And I have to say to them, well, hold on. The other islands are coming. The other islands are actually preparing retail bonds. And you would be able to participate in any of the issuances by the other islands on the bond. This is not just open to Grenadians. It's open to every member of the ECCE. Yeah? The auction is going to be on the 31st of October. Normally, when we have an auction, it's just a couple of hours. Auctions opens at 9, closes at 10, 12? 12. And within that period, I would normally have subscriptions 10, 15, 25 million. That is gone. This particular auction, we're actually opening it for 3 weeks. We're opening it for 3 weeks to give the brokers the time to be able to enter your bids, one, and to also give you the time to finish opening your brokerage accounts and to participate. On any auction day, the brokers do not normally have this large influx of persons trying to go after the bonds. So we really and truly have to give them time to enter the bonds, to enter the bids, sorry. It's a first come, first served basis, meaning the sooner that you get your brokerage account open and your transactions completed with the broker, the better, because they would be taking note, of course, of the date and the time that you finish your process with them, and they would be entering the bids in that order. Yeah? As an issuer on the RGSM, I am obligated to tell you that there are 6 brokers operating on the RGSM. We have 6 licensed brokers. We do not promote one over the other. We provide the information and access to all. You, as the investor, would do your due diligence and you would choose whom you want to have as your broker. Yeah? I would always advise investors that you don't just speak to one broker, you speak to the others. You find out what is the cost of using the broker. Yeah? You find out what is this going to cost me. And Mr. Lord alluded to that as well. Your investment must make sense. You want your asset to make money for you. You don't want what you think is an asset to be a liability and take money from you. Yeah? And while I'm on that, I'll give you an example. I was approached by a gentleman who heard me speaking on one of the programs and asked me what I think about him taking out a loan to go after the bonds. You know, and I asked him, you want to take out a loan, what's the interest rate on the loan that you're taking out? Is it simply because you're hearing this stir about investing and government bonds and so you want to be part of that? But it has to make sense. It has to make sense. If you're going to take out a loan with an interest rate to buy something that is going to give you less than what you're paying for your loan, then it doesn't make sense. And it is not by accident that the team is turning savers to investors. Mr. Lord spoke about it. Before you reach investment, the normal, traditional, the better way to do it is to save first. You build capital through saving, and once you get to the desired amount, then you take that capital and you put it to work for you. If you have an investment opportunity that is going to give you a rate of return that is much higher than taking a loan, then it might make sense. But high risk, high returns. So the higher the rate of return, the nicer it looks in terms of the rate of return. You have to really look at the risk involved in it, because the chance that you may lose your money is a lot higher. Yeah? That's the sort of analysis we have to put into it. So we're saying, quick recap, we're issuing a retail bond, minimum investment amount $500, returns 4.25% for 2 years. Interest is going to be paid semi-annually. And most importantly, you need to open your brokerage account, because only the brokers are able to access the market to participate in the auction. So if you want them to participate on your behalf, you need to open your brokerage account by contacting your broker and having a conversation with the broker. And you can choose which broker that you wish. On the Ministry of Finance website, we had a pre-registration link. That link, once we gathered person's preferred broker, we shared the information with the broker. So that pre-registration link is not, and I repeat, is not your guarantee to the bond. There's no guarantee to the bond. What you need to do is to open your brokerage account with your broker. Like I said, we have 6 brokers in the region. We have Cooperative Bank, who is domiciled here, meaning they have a physical presence here. We have Bank of St. Lucia, who's based in St. Lucia. We have First Citizens Investments, who's also based in St. Lucia. In St. Kitts, we have the St. Kitts and Anguilla National Bank and the Bank of Nevis. And in St. Vincent, we have the Bank of St. Vincent. I'm very happy to say that some of our brokers have actually agreed to reduce their costs for the opening of the brokerage accounts. Yeah? It just goes to underscore the importance they see to this particular venture. Please, your question. Who are the brokers who've done that? That's why I say to you, contact the brokers and speak to the brokers. Yeah? Next thing I'm here and I say one broker, say 5, and next broker, and then you go and you say, Mr. Pierre is promoting this broker over another. I have to be very cautious where that is concerned. Like I said, as an issuer with relations with all of the brokers and good relations with all of the brokers, I advise all clients to speak with the broker. The broker may have their standard fees, and in their discussion with you decide to treat you to slightly different treatment as it relates to their costs. Yeah? And then you need to build that relationship with your broker, because your broker becomes one of your advisors. You know, your broker is not just going to sit there and wait for you to come to them and say, I want to do some investment, they would be reaching out to you. They would build a profile on you. They would say, all right, look, this is your appetite. Based on the conversation we have, this person have a little bit more appetite for risk than another. They're going to contact you and say, look, Mr. X, 2 months down the road, we have a next auction coming up from St. Kitts, from St. Lucia, from Nevis. They may offer you options of investment that are not necessarily RGSM-based investment. They might be able to suggest to you, hi, we have mutual funds that are, we can participate in down the road. And that's the sort of relationship any broker would want to have with you. And so you have to build that relationship with the broker. You need to speak to the broker. Give the brokers a call. You can find quite a bit of information on the website that has been created specifically for the issuance of not just Grenada's, for all of the retail bonds that are going to be coming up. The website is eccuretailbond.com. eccuretailbond.com. Yeah? Take down that website, pop on it, have a look. You're going to see what's going on there. The contact information for all of the brokers are there. Give them a shout. Do your due diligence. Please, your question. That I cannot say. Yeah. As governments, they would have the right to vary, what it is they're seeing. What has happened with this particular bond? We didn't just pull the information out of the air. Yeah. Over the history of the RGSM, we saw the amount of persons who were trying to get on. We did a little survey, we sent out little questionnaires here and there, and we got feedback. People actually said what they think a good minimum would be like. People actually said what they thought a good time period might be like, and so we modeled the bond after that. And that's part of the purpose of a pilot. The pilot is so to gather information, to see how we can produce the best product. Yeah. Coming out of this particular auction, you may very well find that, look, there might be appetite for a longer bond, a 5-year bond. There might be appetite for much more than 5 million, because you can have what is called oversubscription. I am here trying to raise $5 million, but there could be offers for 15. So that says to me immediately, look, there are persons who want to invest much more. And that says that, look, next time, maybe not a $5 million bond, do a 10. We can see, well, who the investors are. Did the bulk of them come from Grenada? Did we have from St. Kitts? Did we have from St. Vincent? And you get a sense of the demand for the product. It's opened regionally. All of the issuances on the RGSM is open to member countries of the ECCU. Yeah? And we kept the bond small. You didn't want to overdo it on the very first instance. We're gathering information, so it's 5 million. But I feel pretty confident that the demand for the product is much more than that. Yeah? All right, good. Question? That is an option to be considered. There are many different ways that governments can deal with that. So, for example, you may have countries where an issuance is done, it's undersubscribed. When we say undersubscribed, meaning that the maximum is not reached. And some institution, for example, some of the brokers, they may have an arrangement with the broker where the broker takes all of the balance. Bahamas, we have cases in Bahamas where the central bank takes the balance. I don't think our central bank is permitted to participate, but there are several ways in which this can be done. A takeaway from this might simply be that, look, we need to go there and share more information. We need to get people to understand what is happening. The undersubscription of the bond really and truly is more information that you gather. We can extend the period if we determine that more time is needed. That's something to be considered. Like I said, it's a pilot. In asking for 3 weeks, because we needed to speak with the regulator, with the management of the RGSM, because like remember I told you, this normally is 1 day, 3 hours, 9 to 12, and it's done. We asked for 3 weeks. Some person said, no, you don't need 3 weeks. You might just need 1. Some person said, no, you might need more. The pilot gives us the sense of that, yeah. question. So posted on the website is what we call an addendum to our prospectus. Fancy words. Every year we prepare what is called a prospectus. The prospectus gives you basic oversight as to what is happening in the economy, how we see the economy is going to perform, and we list there as well all of the auctions that we plan to do, the amounts and the time they must happen, right? So we do that every year at the start of the year. So when I did the prospectus this year, the details on the retail bond was not available. So the retail bond is not contained within our prospectus. So we had to do an addendum, an additional piece of information which speaks to the retail bond. So on that website, you would see a link, I believe, which may bring you back to the Ministry of Finance website, where we have the addendum posted, and you would find information there. But also bear in mind that the Ministry of Finance publishes monthly fiscal information. We also publish quite a number of documents that speak to our macroeconomic performance. Yeah. Recently published was what is called, I think, the Medium-Term Fiscal Framework Paper, MTFF, which detailed our half-year performance to date. So there's always information on our website as it relates to how government is performing from a macro-fiscal perspective. If you can't find it, you have any difficulties finding it, please reach out without fear. Grenada is considered to be one of the most transparent islands in the region as it relates to its fiscal and debt data. And it's because we're publishing on time, and we're publishing with accuracy. Please. 6 to 7 auctions every year. We've done, I believe, 5. Yeah. Exactly. Yes. I'm saying 5. We've done 4. I have one coming up on the 28th of October, which is just around the corner. Right, Kishel? You have that in your schedule, the next upcoming auction, 28th of October. I believe a one-year treasury. No, that is a regular auction, and that minimum is 5,000. The interest rate is a competitive interest rate, which is different from the retail bond. What happens with the competitive interest rate? It's not first come, first serve. I am coming to borrow, right? I want to borrow at the least cost. I don't want to borrow at 7%. I want to borrow at 3, 2, the lowest cost. So I'm coming to the market to borrow money. The investors is coming to invest. Yeah? They want, of course, the highest that they can earn. I set a maximum. So on my 91 days, I believe the maximum I have is 3.5%. On my 1 year, I believe the maximum I have is 4%. And I'm saying that the most I'm going to pay to anyone who is willing to lend me money is 4% on that particular auction. What usually happens is that we have more persons wanting to lend me money than I want to borrow. And what happens when supply passes demand? The price goes down. And that is what happens with the competitive auctions. The rate of interest goes down. Perfect example. I want to borrow $5 million. Yeah? You come to me and you say, Mr. Pierre, I want to take the full $5 million. I will accept the 4%. He wants to invest. He wants a return. But you're already offering to take everything at 4%. He comes to me and he says, Mr. Pierre, I will take everything at 3%. Because he wants the investment. Another person comes in and they say, Mr. Pierre, I want to take everything, but I'll accept 2.5%. When the auction closes, I would get the total minimum interest rate required. So with the competitive auction, any amount of persons could participate. What determines your success is your bid, and the lower the bid, the better it is for me. With the retail bond, the interest rate is fixed. And that is why we have to use first come, first serve to determine who gets the successful bid. Any other questions? So in the retail bond, the household bond, once you see that household bond, the minimum is 500. Or regular auctions, the minimum 5,000. And that is why we brought down the minimum, because we really want individuals, the natural individuals, you know, the housewife, the dentist, the doctor, the teacher, the bus driver, who has saved and who have accumulated a bit of capital, and they're looking for means of making that money work while they sleep. You're not going to get rich overnight on 4.25%, but at least your money would be earning something more. And that's what you need to bear in mind. It must be money earning something more than where you have it presently. Yeah? Something I like to tell people all the time. Income earned from RGSM bonds and treasury bills, they're tax-free. The ECCU government does not tax income earned from treasury bills, bonds, and notes. Yeah? Your salary is not tax-free if you're not below a certain threshold. Income earned here, tax-free. Your bond is issued on a first-come, first-served basis. The earlier you get in, the better. And that's why we encourage, go to your brokers now, open your brokerage account now, complete your transaction with them if you want to buy $10,000 in bonds, $5,000 in bonds, $700 in bonds. Speak to the broker, complete that transaction now. Yeah? And thank you kindly. Yes. When you open the brokerage account, in fact, I'll leave that for Kishel. I've already taken up some of her time. Thank you. Any other questions, please free. You can contact me afterwards or, you know. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kerry. And yes, they will be available to answer your questions if you have any after. And if you have a question, you can raise your hand and we'll pass the mic to you because, all right, thank you. So you heard from Mr. Lord about why you should create wealth for yourself. You heard about the ways you can create wealth for yourself. You heard from Mr. Pay regarding a product that can help you create wealth for yourself. Now we're going to hear from the expert. The broker that's domiciled here is going to tell you how you go about investing on the Securities Exchange. Our next presenter, our final presenter for the evening, represents one of Grenada's leading financial institutions and will share guidance on how individuals can invest in the stock exchange to achieve sustainable financial growth. Her topic is how to invest on the stock exchange. Ms. Kishel Francis is a licensed principal. She was licensed by the Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission and is accredited to the broker-dealer operations of Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited. Currently, she serves as the acting manager of the Wealth Management and Financial Services Department. In her current role, she performs oversight functions within the Wealth Management and Financial Services Department and is responsible for strategy implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Kishel Francis.
Thank you, Darlene. And good afternoon, everyone. So we had some pretty good presentations so far. I myself, I learned a bit. So I want to say thank you to the gentlemen who shared with us. So today I'll be presenting, as Darlene said, about the broker-dealer operations, what we do. There were questions about how you get involved. We'll also be speaking about that. But of course, first we want to just do a little introduction, and we'll speak So we'll speak a bit about what the broker-dealer does. So as Mr. Pierce stated, we are the loan broker-dealer in Grenada. So we're the only licensed broker-dealer in Grenada, and we were licensed by the Eastern Caribbean Securities Regulatory Commission as a broker-dealer. And what this means is that we are able to, and what this means apologies for the delay. All right. So as I was saying before, we are a licensed broker dealer, the only licensed broker dealer in Grenada. So in addition to our license for regular banking services that we provide, including the regular things that we know, the traditional banking products, deposit taking and loan creation of loans for individuals and businesses, we are also a broker dealer. As a broker dealer, we are essentially able to interact with individuals who are interested in investing, potential and existing investors as well, and to have a conversation with these investors to help them to meet their investment needs. In addition to that, we're able to purchase and sell securities on their behalf. So as Mr. Pierce stated, we are just one of the broker dealers. And let me just give you the information with respect to the other broker dealers. So there are 6 broker dealers, as he stated. The others, Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have National Bank in St. Kitts. We have First Citizens, which operates in St. Lucia as well as St. Vincent. We have the Bank of Nevis. And we also have Bank of St. Lucia. So those are the other broker dealers. And of course, you're free to interact with those broker dealers as you see fit. So the broker dealer essentially helps you to meet your goals. And we can do this because we have the ability to monitor the market. We also have the information that you need that you may not have been paying attention to. So if you go to a broker dealer, it's pretty almost guaranteed that you'll find something that you're looking for. So we have different types of products and we can create portfolios to meet the needs of these different types of investors. Individuals, governments, companies, pension funds, state-owned enterprises. Several groups. Each group has its different criteria for what they want to invest in. They have different goals with respect to what they want to achieve. And there are different things between them that may vary a bit, but essentially you can find instruments that will meet all of your needs. Most times when individuals come to a broker dealer, we found that they have already looked at the returns that they're receiving at their bank, at their credit union, and they realize that it's not sufficient, it's not enough. And I think we know this by now. The banks generally give you like 2%, and the credit unions, the rates vary a bit, but still not as great as you'd want to receive. And of course, by investing in these securities, you're able to benefit from growth in different sectors. So we often say you can be a Grenadian, living in Grenada, working in Grenada, but you've noticed that there's some economic activity happening in, let's say, St. Lucia. You have no ties to St. Lucia, but you want to get in on that growth. Let's say it's in the banking sector in St. Lucia and you're working in some other field. Let's say you're working in the hotel sector and you want to get in on that growth in a sector completely different from the one that you are employed in, and in a country different from the country that you're actually earning and living in. It's pretty easy to get a piece of that action by investing in securities in St. Lucia and specifically in the generation of electricity, the electricity generation sector in St. Lucia. And it's pretty simple, pretty easy. So we generally do our trading through the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange. And this is the platform through which all of our securities are traded, or most of our securities are traded. It was launched in 2001, so it has been in operation for a while. It's our stock exchange, to put it loosely, and we have two different markets on the exchange. Kerry spoke earlier about the regional government securities market, which is the market through which the household bond will be launched and issued. But we also have the Eastern Caribbean securities market. And on this market, we have a lot of companies or corporate instruments being issued. So these are the different types of securities offered. We have equity securities, which are shares in different companies, and you'll see the list pretty soon. And then we have the debt securities, which are the treasury bills, the notes, the bonds, and corporate papers. Kerry spoke to the difference between the bills, the notes, and the bonds with respect to the time and also with respect to the purpose. And the corporate papers, pretty simple, similar to the government instruments in that you take the funds that you have, that you don't have an immediate need for, and you lend it to this entity. And in this case, it's going to be a private entity. The risk is a bit greater because you're not lending to the government, you're lending to a private entity, but sometimes the returns are a bit greater because, of course, the risk is greater. So corporate papers, generally we have like 1 year instruments from corporate papers. Here we have some information with respect to the equity securities that we have on the market. There are 13 listed companies and 3 Grenadian issuers, and the price ranges from $1.30 to $56 per share. And our newest issuer was a company called the West Indies Oil Company Limited, and it was listed in 2022. And it's involved in the storage and distribution of petroleum products in Antigua and Barbuda and Dominica. So here we have the list of equity securities that are traded on the Securities Exchange. And as we said earlier, there are 3 Grenadian companies. And here we see them. Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited. Grenada Electricity Services Limited. And we also have Grenreal Property Corporation. Of course, Grenada Electricity Services Limited would be, or is Grenlec. And here we see the prices of these shares, the individual shares. So for Qua Bank, and this is as at the end of trading day yesterday, October the 22nd, or the 22nd of October. So for Qua Bank, you could have purchased a share of Qua Bank for $9.25, so that's the last trading price. For Grenlec, it was $11.75 per share, and Grenreal Property Corporation, $5.40. But as I was speaking to earlier, it's pretty easy to tap into growth in other sectors, in other countries by investing in these securities, because there's nothing preventing you from investing in any of the other companies here, right? So the same way that we were speaking about investing in or experiencing some of the growth from the Lucian companies, we have St. Lucia Electricity Services Limited listed here as well, and the last closing price is $24 per share. So there are pretty good options. These securities are generally looked at as long-term securities, but you don't necessarily have to hold it for a long-term period. It's important when you're purchasing securities, you also have to monitor the market. So let's say you purchase a share today, Bank of Nevis shares today for $3 per share. You monitor the market, you see what the security is trading at or what the share is trading at, and you decide whether or not this is the right time to sell. If you see that the price has increased to like $3.50, it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to sell whatever you have, make that profit, take it, and do whatever else you need to do with it. Of course, with equity securities, we don't necessarily see growth within a very short period. So that's why it's usually looked at as a long-term instrument, especially for retirement planning and so on. You purchase it today, you can buy additional amounts every so often, and then you hold on to it and you monitor it and you see that it grows, and you also receive your dividend payments, which are payments that are made from the profits of the company. Carrie went over this. So this is a list of some of the debt securities that are coming up on the market. And as Kerry said, he is unable to choose that we are the main broker, although we believe we are. Although we believe we are. But we're a very fair market, and we all work towards the success of the market. We all have an interest in ensuring that the market operates in an efficient way. So we all we generally speak to all of the issues that we have. So these, you see, there are some issues from the government of Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Antigua, and there are different tenors as well as different tenors, meaning maturity period. So we have the first one, which starts at 91 days. And then we also have different rates of returns. And this one is at 3.5%. You'll see here that the longer term securities tend to have a better rate of return. And that's because the risk is also greater. So you're compensated for that. And there's also the fact that you don't have access to your funds for that period of time. So you're also compensated for that loss of liquidity on your part. So the longer term instruments, we see a 5-year instrument from the government of St. Lucia at 6%, and that compares to a 91-day from government of Antigua at 4%. At 3.5%, sorry. So these are the securities. From time to time, we have changes. As Kerry stated, the addendum was created. And once an addendum is issued, there is a change to the calendar of securities or calendar of issues. So how do you establish an account with a broker-dealer? It's pretty simple. It's very easy. You first need to just present a valid form of government-issued photo ID, a form of proof of address, and that can take the form of your driver's license, and just have an investment discussion. Once you've completed the account opening forms, then you just need to present it to us. We have a discussion. We speak about your risk appetite, because as we know, there is always an element of risk that's inherent in investment products that you don't necessarily find in savings. Although there's a risk with everything, to be honest, but the risk with investment is a bit more. So there's a discussion with respect to your risk appetite, your age, your stage, what your goals are, and then we help you to determine what the best set of securities or the portfolio of securities are for you. If you choose to invest in one specific security, that is fine as well. And if you choose to not invest, that is okay as well, because we want to ensure that each individual, each investor that we onboard is one who understands what they are doing, because we are aware that within our space, investing in these securities is something that we don't hear about a lot. So we have the investment discussion to ensure that each investor understands what he or she is doing and that they don't feel any remorse after. So you have the chance to ask as many questions as you'd like to ask. If you feel that something was not clear during the discussion, you also have the chance to reach out to your broker-dealer again to make sure that you understand before you get into the investment. And making the market work for you. So there are other administrative services that a broker-dealer conducts. And these are mainly for individuals who already own securities, individuals and companies as well. So because a share or a treasury bill, bond, note, because they are all assets, you can use them in the same way that you'd use any other asset, let's say land or anything really. So if you already own shares or you already own a debt instrument, a treasury bill or bond or so on, and you want to transfer it to someone else or you want to donate it to someone else, it is quite possible. We also update the information that you've already presented, your holder information. Let's say, and you had a question about this as well, with respect to where your payments are made. Once the government decides to make a payment or once the company decides to make a payment, you have the option to either receive a check, which we don't necessarily encourage, but you have the option to, or the funds can be sent to a bank account or a credit union account within the ECCU, or the payment can be issued via US draft. So you have really good options that you can take advantage of. We also process the stay-dated dividend checks, which are the checks that you receive from the companies, and they're still dated because you probably received it and left it somewhere, and then 6 months has passed and you're coming with it and you can no longer use it. So we facilitate the reissuance of these payments. And also, something that's not listed here but very important is that through a broker dealer, you're able to pledge or charge your securities. So in the same way, like you may use your land as collateral for some lending, you can use your securities. You'll just complete a form and hand it over to an entity, temporarily, of course. And at the end of the period, the securities are transferred over to your name. So these are the main, these are the roles of the broker dealer. Any questions? Oh, the fees are very affordable. Very affordable. We don't.
Let me answer on behalf of Fisher. We have seen fees as high as $30, $35, and we've seen fees as low as $10.
Yeah. Per transaction. Per transaction. So the fees should not be a deterrent because they really are very low. Especially for the household bond, we are working with the government of Grenada to ensure that it is a profitable venture for each person who invests. And I'm not at liberty to say no, but we have really tried our best to ensure that this issue is one that is successful. So I'm pretty sure you'll be very happy once it's made public what the fee will be for this specific issue. But for the other issues, I can assure you, as Kerry said, it's like $30-something, $20-something. It depends on what you're investing in. It shouldn't really be a deterrent. I promise.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the rates are for the specific instrument. Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Oh.
Yes. Right. So we know that Grenada Cooperative Bank is a broker. Now, when acting as a broker for an ordinary person, it means you're making the investment on our behalf.
Correct.
Does that mean that we need to have an account with the Grenada Cooperative Bank, or our account can be anywhere else?
Your account can be anywhere else. It's not necessary to be a Co-op Bank customer to be a brokerage, or a Co-op Bank account holder to be a brokerage account customer or brokerage account holder. You can establish an account and your funds can be sent to any other bank, any other credit union across the Eastern Caribbean, currency union. It may make it a bit easier when transferring funds because we are, on our e-banking platform, we are listed as one of the merchants, GCBL Wealth Management. So it's pretty easy to transfer funds from your account to the account that we use for trading, but it's not mandatory. It's not, and there's no, we don't penalize individuals or investors because they don't have a bank account with us. It may be a bit difficult for you to move the funds yourself. If you have to move the funds, you can use an EFT or whatever method, electronic funds transfer, or you can actually bring the cash to us, but it's not necessary to have a bank account with us. Because we have a broker dealer that is actually not a bank. Yeah, so you'll have to have an account elsewhere.
To open.
It's not.
Yes, thank you. So in terms of the account you have to open, you said you could open the account, but it's not a case that you could rush to invest. So with opening that account, is there a fee attached to that account?
No, there are no holding fees for those accounts.
Okay.
You only pay when you do a transaction.
Okay.
When you purchase some shares, you pay the fee for that specific transaction.
So let me give you a scenario. If somebody already has shares with Co-op Bank, would they still have to bring all this information in? Or another financial institution that would be?
If you purchase your shares through the broker-dealer operations of Co-op Bank, then you will not need to establish a new account. If the shares were purchased in the last APO, which was probably around 2010, then you will need to establish a new account. You'll need to establish an account because there was no account created for you. Yeah. But you can, if you'd like, at this point, you can pre-register on the Government of Grenada's website as well, and they'll send the information over to us. Or you can just send an email to info@grenadacorpbank.com or this email address here, wealthmanagement@grenadacorpbank.com, and we'll send you the information that you need to establish an account. Any more questions? Oh.
You said that Co-op Bank is one of the companies that was listed on the stock market, and they also acting as a broker. Is that not conflict of interest? Take, for example, I come to you and I come to you as a broker and I want to invest in another company. Would you sway me to invest in Co-op Bank instead of another company?
It's not a conflict of interest for us because it's not a conflict of interest for us because the securities have already been issued. So the bank is not the one selling those shares, but individuals who already own the shares are the ones selling the shares. So the commission that the bank makes from selling Co-op Bank shares under the broker-dealer arm is the same commission that the bank makes from selling Grenlec shares. So the bank has it's essentially we're just facilitating the trade. But for us, it really doesn't matter which security you purchase in terms of our bottom line. For you, it matters because you need to ensure that you choose a strong company, one that has been in existence for a while, one that has proved itself to the public, and you can look at the financials if you like to ensure that what you're investing in is strong. But we don't sway you either way. I mean, we give you the information that you need. We can give you some information like summary ratios, earnings per share, those types of things, and you can look at it and decide what you want to purchase.
How many, what amount of money you like to invest, right? For example, you might say 5,000. Can you increase that amount later? Thank you.
You can, but it has to be before the end of the auction, the close of the auction. Yeah. Also, I must also state, since we're here, that while there's a $5,000 minimum investment for the government securities on the market, and that is what prompted the government of Grenada and the other government as well to reduce the investment amount, the minimum investment amount. For the other instruments on the market, such as the equities, there's no true minimum investment. Once you're able to purchase 20 shares at any price, whichever you want to purchase, once you're able to purchase 20 shares, then you're able to invest. And 20 shares would look different from company to company. I mean, if you purchase 20 TDC shares, that would be like $26. So investing is pretty easy. It's pretty simple. There are just different types of instruments that would meet and suit the needs of the different types of investors that we have. So we encourage you to reach out to your broker dealer. It's pretty easy to find information with respect to the companies listed as well as the broker dealers, and you can go onto the ECSE's website, which is www.ecseonline.com, and you'll find a wealth of information there. You can also visit our website, www.grenadacorpbank.com, and you'll find some information there as well. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a lot of information. I had a conversation before we started the session, a brief conversation with a member of the audience. And it will be interesting to hear what she says now that we're finished with our presentations. I'll be asking you that question again, Mrs. Marshall. And you'll let me know what you think now, if your mind has changed. So as we close this evening's session, I trust that the conversations we've had will inspire each of us to look beyond saving and begin investing, not only in financial products, but in knowledge, discipline, and our own financial future. Let's commit to making decisions that move us, our families, and our nation from being cautious savers to confident investors. Thank you for your time and participation, and have a wonderful evening.